Hey, everybody, welcome to the Simplified Church podcast. We are so excited that you are here with us.
Woo.
And I am excited, as always, to be joined by my co-host, Mike Whittemore. He's over here doing his little happy dance. Man, how in the world are you, my friend?
Very sad. This is my sad dance. It's very deceiving. I have a dance for sad, and I do nothing when I'm happy.
So you're Presbyterian.
Yeah. Yes. And here come the emails.
Presbyterians don't use email.
No, they don't. No, just
Snail
unsigned connection cards. We love our Presbyterian friends. Man, I love it.
There went the invitation to the PCA annual conference.
Yeah. I guess we're not coming back this year. Look, Dr. Sproul is a personal hero of mine, so
Agreed.
don't write us off just yet, gang. Okay, we're still hanging with you.
Agreed.
Got a couple questions about some other stuff you guys got rolling, but all good around the table. Man, I'm good, dude. Like, I had a really great weekend. The weather here was perfect. I know we talk about that, but that's what old dudes talk about.
That's right.
I saw a great meme this weekend that was cracking me up, that was talking about, like, when you're kind of a white guy in middle-aged, or you get to a certain age, there's only like really 3 decisions that you can make about how you're going to choose to spend your free time.
Yep.
And it's getting into golf, right? Get deeply into World War II trivia. Or you start smoking meats now. You're real into the barbecuing and grilling and stuff.
Amen.
Yes, but Greg's about to have church right now.
I am. I'm about to have church right here.
Yeah, welcome to church.
Talking
about meat church.
That's right. Talking about meats.
Yeah, talking about meats.
I believe that you should just begin every opportunity of gathering of the body to talk about some kind of cooking of the meats.
Yeah, I tell you, man, that's the one thing church culture I think has always done right, and most continue to do right, is get together for a meal. It is good and godly, especially when the food is good and godly.
It's true. And man, I fired up the smoker this weekend. I put a butt on, and that was delicious for pulled pork. I also did the St. Louis special.
Okay.
Did some pork steaks on the smoker.
There you go.
They were right on that, man. They were right on the money. So absolutely, there's nothing that can get old guys talking more than cuts of meat.
But it's such a true meme, isn't it? Like,
it is.
You kind of get to this place in your life where you're like, man, I do need a hobby, or I do need to find a way to spend my time. And it was just funny that it was golf, World War II facts, or smoking meat. And so for me, I'm definitely a history nerd, especially American history. I quite enjoyed talking about that. But
you could always do the history of the cooking of the meats.
Yeah, see, now that's where you can combine your loves. Yes. And really, you could be a real hit at every get together, until they stop inviting you. It's like, all that guy talks about is the history of grills.
But they're going to keep inviting you as long as you bring the meats.
That's true. You do have to provide. I mean, if you're gonna talk that much about how much surrounding food, you got to show up with some serious talent. But I did get to enjoy one of my favorite hobbies this weekend, as with the beautiful weather, just sitting outside enjoying a nice cigar, man. And so that was fantastic.
Pairs nicely with smoked meats.
Oh yeah, it does. And oh man, you get just a big old thing of barbecue, and then wash that down with a Drew Estate, cigar, man, a nice Maduro. Ooh, man. See, we
just got all the Presbyterians back.
I was going to say, we just got all the Presbyterians back, but we lost half of the Southern Baptists. They're gone. See, Catholics are on the edge still.
Equal opportunity offenders right here on the Simplified Church podcast.
Equal opportunity offenders. That's right, man. But we'll get the Catholics back, because we're gonna sponsor this next segment by Budweiser. No, I'm just kidding. Save the emails. Just a joke, folks. Just a joke. Anyway, just making sure you're listening. But I'm good, man. It sounds like you're good. That's always nice. I'm excited to be kicking off some of these summer episodes, man. Like we're episode 31 coming into the summer. It's been a really fun year so far for the Simplified Church podcast, and some of the conversations been able to have, guests we've had on. It's been really cool. And over the next couple of weeks, bro, I'm pumped that we get to have this conversation about what is really at the forefront of a lot of churches. As you know, we just did an episode not too long ago about, kind of the summer slump and how to anticipate that. And we got a lot of buzz around that episode, which was really neat. Because I think it resonates, right? Like every pastor kind of experiences some of these pain points. And one of these pain points that we often hit in the summer and need to kind of learn from and prepare ourselves with is this idea of, why is it so hard to get people to serve in your church? Why is that such a challenge? And so what we're going to do, as you're listening and trying to figure out like what you're going to be committing your time to the next 3 weeks, you're going to want to go ahead and schedule your Tuesdays, lock them down, because the next 3 weeks, we're going to be talking about one of the most important challenges that churches are facing right now. And that is, how do we get people involved? Why is it so hard to keep people involved? Why does it seem like getting folks to serve in our church is like pulling teeth, or it's a revolving door? And so we're going to jump into that. Man, we're going to get pretty deep in the weeds. And over the next few weeks, we're going to unpack a lot of reasons as to why that's happening. And then, like we often do here in the Simplify podcast, because we're, we're a show for everyday pastors, everyday leaders, we're going to get into some nuts and bolts, practical solutions. So I'm pumped for that. And bro, dude, I'm very excited to be able to announce this. Next week, we've got a great friend of the show, a guy named Mike Havron, is going to be coming on to speak with us, this is kind of his wheelhouse. He serves as a volunteer engagement coordinator for one of the largest churches in America. And so he's going to be sitting in and just kind of helping us unpack this reality, because what's fascinating is that finding people to serve in your church is not exclusive to size. You might be thinking, man, my church is 75, 80 people. We just planted. We're struggling to put together our launch team. Man, we're running 600 and we still have this, man, his, top 5, 6, I think, in the top 6 largest churches in America or whatever. Like it's a massive church. They've got problems getting people plugged in. And the problem is the numbers just increase, right? As the needs increase based on size. So we're going to get to really, I think, kind of pull back the layers on this conversation. And I'm pumped for that. At your church, Greg, now I know you guys sit as an anomaly because you don't have any problem getting people involved. It's just, you're beating them off with a stick. Just, no, we don't need any more volunteers. How many times do you say that on a Sunday? Sorry, folks. All the volunteer spots are full.
Never.
You don't ever say that. Okay.
No,
so this is a challenge for you too.
It is. And it's one of those things that, like you say, it never goes away. Doesn't matter how good you are at engaging volunteers and retaining volunteers, or how large your church is, how small your church is, the format of your church. Every church struggles with this idea of engaging volunteers and then connecting those volunteers to service and then keeping them serving. Every church has that problem.
Every church does, man. And we know that's a pain point for so many pastors listening, so many leaders listening. We've got folks that listen to the show, which is really cool, that aren't even in paid ministry, but just sit as kind of, volunteer leads over departments, over teams. And I hear this in conversations too, like, man, this is a challenge. And so no matter what kind of your role is in your church, I think you'll find that a lot of what we're going to be unpacking the next couple of weeks is going to be really beneficial, really helpful, regardless really of background, tradition, all that kind of stuff. So we're going to kind of get into the weeds on this, because I want to start talking about those inherent challenges. And so Greg and I, we've got 4 kind of inherent challenges for you. So we're going to kind of bounce back and forth on these. We're going to, kind of share some insights, some thoughts that we have, but I know it may seem weird to start out with, like, what are those problems? Because, you may be looking at your situation going, yeah, I know I have a problem, dude. Like, I'm listening for solutions, but I just want you to commit to hang until we get to the end of this, because I'm going to try to, put a bow on this to help you understand why we're starting with this particular angle of the conversation. Okay. So don't go anywhere. Just kind of hang out with us for the next 20 minutes or so. And I think it'll begin to make a lot of sense for you. But that first inherent challenge that I want to talk about is one that it just seems like a giant duh. But but it's more than that. And it is that idea that we have a declining church attendance, and we have a culture of decline in our country. We know that. We've talked about that. You've talked about that. Your circles, your Panera meet and greets, your networks. We've talked about this, right? Like, we know that there's a declining culture in our churches. That being said, not everything we do is in decline, right? We have kind of ebbs and flows, fits and starts in our churches. And so we can't get locked into that place where it's like, oh man, just the numbers decline and summer's hard because, people are busy. Yeah, I get all that. But you can't let that just be a constant roadblock, because here's the deal. Just as you might find yourself in a season of decline, we still believe the Lord's in charge of growing the church. Amen. Right? So if that's true, then you're going to find yourself in a season of growth. You're going to find yourself in an upswing where people are, coming to your church. They're new, they're visiting, they want to get connected. They want to get plugged in. And so what are we doing to anticipate those seasons instead of kind of just looking at everything through half glass empty? Just, oh man, no, we know people are going to be, people are going to be showing up. People are going to be coming. Like, the Lord's blessing what we're doing here. And right now, maybe maybe a little thin, might be a little light on stuff, but that's okay. So I think the question that we have got to ask ourselves as we're talking about this challenge of declining church attendance is, do we see serving opportunities as a chance for growth? Do we see that as we look at the landscape of how our churches are structured, how they're put together? Do we see them as an opportunity, a chance for growth? Like for you, Greg, you look at your worship team, look at your admin team, you look at these various, the tech team, you got these various teams that you sit over. Do we see those teams as opportunities for growth, like as an opportunity for your church to actually grow? You know what I mean?
Yeah. And I think this is one of those difficult spots. And I think churches come down on it at different times in different ways. But I think that the answer should be yes.
Sure.
They should be opportunities for us to see growth by giving people opportunities to connect. Because I would say that overwhelmingly our culture is saying, I'm in desperate need of relationships, and I'm in desperate need of something that has purpose. And if I can't find it in my vocation, can I find it in a place that I can volunteer?
Oh, dude, that'll preach all day right there.
And so I do think we have to begin to say, okay, but are there ways? I had somebody a couple of weeks ago when we were doing our vacation Bible school, a girl that kind of had lost touch with our church when she got into college. She's now finishing college. She reached out, hey, I know I've been out of church for a long time. Could I come help at vacation Bible school?
Yes.
Sorry, you can't this time because it was like day 2 of VBS.
Oh, okay. You were already cranking. Yeah. You're burning at that point. Yeah.
And I'm like, okay, yeah, no, there are too many hoops that would have to happen. But yes, we would love to connect you. If you would like to get connected and get plugged in and serve, we want you to. So let's have more conversations. And so yes, hopefully we'll find those opportunities. The fine line that we have to walk out and find at our own places, and we're still working it out at our place, of what are things that anybody can do.
Yeah.
What are things that only covenant members can do? And then are there some things that only our pastors and our elders will do?
Love it, man. I love that distinction.
And trying to clearly articulate those things so that volunteering can be a doorway to see the church grow. But I think it has to be super intentional. And because it has to be super intentional, if we're honest, most churches don't do it well.
Yeah, I love, because what I've just learned is that if I want to get out of serving at VBS at church, is to email, can I serve day 2 or 3 of VBS? That's the way to do it right there. That's smart. man, they've been hounding me about getting involved at VBS. I'll just wait till Tuesday. No, I love the distinction you gave. And I think that's going to be really helpful as we unpack this conversation, because man, giving people distinction in how we think about creating opportunities for people to serve, to use their gifts, that Ephesians 4 mentality of really equipping the church for those good works, that God has already in advance planned. How can we open the doors for that and kind of get out of the way so we're not a bottleneck? But it's exactly what you talked about. Is there are some realities of limitations in play. Why don't you walk us through that? What are some of those limitations that kind of you see that cause bottlenecks, that cause challenges for people to get involved?
Well, I think there are a variety. I think one is, and probably the major one is lack of expectation.
Yep.
Of a need for volunteers, as far as like we've not created the space for volunteers to show up. Yeah, we say we always have a need for volunteers. We have, yeah, you could come serve in this way or in that way, but we're not specific. And so we've not created those spaces with the intention of somebody filling them.
Yep.
So, it's we only need 5 people to do this. Well, are you sure? Is there room for it really to be 8 people? Yeah, we could get by with 5, but would it be better if we had 8 and now we've opened space and opportunity for people to serve? So I think limitations are often driven by short-sightedness and not creating the space for new volunteers, if that makes sense.
Yeah, 100%, man. And I it's amazing how we do that. Like, I think oftentimes when we're planning for ministry, it's more of like a ready, fire, aim. And we don't really think about that long-term growth opportunity. Like, man, this could really be a great place for people to get that, especially if they're new. We've got that distinction. Like, this is something that you don't even have to be a covenant member to do. You don't have to be a paid staff member to do. This is for anybody that's journeying in their faith, or this is for anybody that can pass a background check. Hey, we're gonna have them help out in this way. And so I think we have those limitations. And so part of that is, and this is our second thing to talk about today, is engaging and connecting with people that are members of our church and folks that are attending our church. And we've got to remove those limitations out of the way, because man, it's exactly what you just said. It's beautiful. Like, we're asking, hey, we have this event, we need people to come serve, but we're not always asking the right way. We may think, oh, we're asking for people to help, but like, to your point, bro, like, we're not being clear in what we're doing. And part of that too is also like, there can be a lack of clarity around what are the next steps. There's no pathway. And so, I know what it's like to be new at a church in this season. And when you're new at a church and you're thinking, okay, who do I talk to?
Right.
If I want to get involved, do they even want me involved? Like, I think that's a huge question. Like, sometimes we're not clear about that. And so because we're not clear about that, I think our first instinct is, I'm not needed. If I'm not needed, I don't want to get involved. I don't want to have to hunt somebody down. So just, if there's a place for me and I can try to get involved, so I think, man, we're not often clear about those next steps. We're not clear about the pathway. And to the bigger issue, that if you've got people that are serving in ministry roles, especially you've got those kind of high capacity volunteers, folks that are just, they're eager to bite off more. Those are the ones that are going to be your biggest conduit for recruiting. Mm-hmm. And that's what you want, is you want to create a culture where volunteers are primarily recruiting other volunteers and people to serve. And if we're not doing that, if we're not engaging our people to do that, I think that creates a huge challenge for us in developing that culture. Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. I think that we need to be sure that as we're developing opportunities for people to serve, that we're clear with on-ramps.
Yeah.
We're clear with off-ramps. Mm-hmm. Okay, that's not the place for you. Great. Let's get you out of that pathway of serving and onto another one that maybe is a better fit. But then also being clear of, is it expected that if you're going to be part of this family that you serve?
Oh, come on. Yeah.
If it's an expectation, then we've got to not only push that expectation and clearly articulate that expectation, but then ensure that we've provided the space for it. And then, like you say, having our volunteers be our number one recruiter. And one of the best ways to be able to do that is to be able to say, hey, why don't you come do it with me?
Oh, come on, man. That's easy.
If it's, there are so many places in church life that you can serve that don't require anything except for a willingness to do it.
Mm-hmm. And a pulse. Yeah.
And I know that sounds harsh, but like making coffee to a certain degree takes very little skill set.
Right.
Just a willingness to do it.
Yeah.
Or
to own it. Show up and do it.
To serve coffee, or to just tell people good morning. You just need a smile on your face, and be able to tell people, hey, I'm so glad you're here. And so if you're on the greet team, man, just invite somebody to do it with you.
Yeah.
Like, it doesn't need special training to be able to shake somebody's hand or give them a fist bump or a high five and say, hey, man, I'm so glad that you're here. If there's something I can do to serve you, please let me know. That doesn't take a ton of training. It doesn't take a special skill set. Jump in, invite them to do it with you. But I'm even trying to do that in some more specific and skill specific areas.
Okay.
Talking with some of my tech crew folks. Okay. Who do you know who maybe has some of this skill set? Invite them in. If somebody comes and talks to you and is interested or remotely starts to have a technological conversation with them or with you, invite them in. Say, hey, why don't you come sit up here with me next week?
Yep. Man, that's good, dude. That's good.
To invite them in to those conversations. Now, I would never invite somebody into the preschool department.
Right.
As far as, oh yeah, you're new here. Yeah, just come on back to the preschool department.
Yeah. What was your name again? Yeah. Yeah, just go ahead. Go on over there. That's fine.
But there are a ton of areas that don't require a background check, at least right out the chute, where you can connect people and get them serving and finding out, do I fit here, really quickly. And if we can do that and be more effective at it, I think we find that we can overwhelm and overcome that huge obstacle that is being connected with our church people. But here's the other thing I'll throw back to you.
Okay.
Is some of the reason that we struggle with engaging and keeping volunteers is because we consistently prove that we don't actually need the number of volunteers that we think we need.
Man, I think about this a lot, dude. I think that's a really important question. I think it's an important question for this episode because I think at times we're just so desperate to try to get people involved and get them to do something that it's kind of like creating busy work. And we think that somehow we're doing a service for people if we can get them busy doing something. But what I've learned over my years of doing this, man, is that people see through that pretty quick. Like when they realize that, man, I'm not really necessary. This doesn't feel necessary. And really, no matter how much lipstick you try to put on it or how cool or sexy you try to make it sound, it's just not super necessary. You know what I mean? Like, you don't need somebody standing outside the bathroom high-fiving people as they're coming out. Like, that's not a place for people to sign up to serve. So I think at times we do try to create too many on-ramps instead of recognizing that maybe our challenge isn't how many people do we need. It's a challenge of what opportunities do we have? How are we moving people through those opportunities? Are those service opportunities kind of like that's your seat on the bus and that's it? Or do we recognize that, like, no, man, people on the connections team, they might serve there for 6 months or a year, but we got to be intentionally looking for the people that kind of stand out, that have really great kind of dynamic personalities, that are really kind of, top shelf extroverts that, would probably make a great service host. Or it might, maybe they got some talent and we can get them on the worship team, or maybe they need to be leading kids worship, So like, I think oftentimes we don't see the development that takes place and the development that could take place. And so we staff these ministries with as many people as we can, thinking that that's the end all be all. Mm-hmm. And I don't think that's the way it should be. And I think that's part of it is like, our third kind of challenge, and I think you're hinting at it, is this idea of skill set limitations. And so we don't recognize that we've got to train people and develop people so that they can train people and develop people. And that's a big part of volunteer culture in your church, is equipping people to now take ownership of the ministry and then give ministry away, recognizing that there might be somebody far better suited or in far greater need of an opportunity like that, instead of holding on to it so tightly. And so part of that is like developing a wide variety of opportunities, mm-hmm. And to your point, man, it's coming down and really creating those buckets of distinction. Like, what is stuff that, only certain people can do and certain people can't do? And that's a reality. Like, there's nothing wrong with that. But I love going back to the old Jim Collins, the good versus great, or good to great, not good versus great, but good to great, when he wrote that book and he was talking about, getting people on the bus. And so, like, who needs to be on the bus? What seats are on the bus? And then how do you get the right people on the right seats on the bus? And I love that illustration. I don't know if you've ever read that. It's a great, it's very corporate. It's very, kind of philosophically business driven, but it's an important, I think, benchmark for us in the structuring of our volunteer culture, is recognizing what are we trying to accomplish here and who do we need? And are we trying to get too many people on the bus, or are they just not in the right seats?
Right. Well, and having that fluidity enough in your ministry structure to allow you to move those people on the bus, as you need to be able to say, hey, I need you right here, right now.
Yep.
But 6 months from now, I may need you over here.
Yeah.
Or 6 weeks from now, I may need you over here. Or tomorrow, I may need you over here. And being able to do some of those kind of things. I think sometimes structurally in our churches, we have hamstrung ourselves with some of our expectations for serving and some of our requirements that we can't do that kind of stuff. Okay, I'm gonna pick on Baptist because I is one.
Okay, I like that.
The church that I grew up in, we voted on who the piano player was.
No.
Yeah.
What?
Yeah.
What's the criteria? How do you even put that to a vote?
I don't know, but it was part of the nominating team's report every year. This is our accompanist. This is our organist. This is our, and okay, so now you are hamstrung. What if I need that person to play violin, but I can't because they're the accompanist? Now, I know that's a stupid example.
No,
but
it's wild is what that is. That's bananas.
But, it's one of those things that if we're not careful, we can make it where our structure doesn't allow for us to shuffle people on the bus into other seats where they're best serving the team and the church. And so I think we do have to make sure that both of these pieces, the overall organizational structure of the church is allowing for the volunteer and the ministry-based structure of the church to function at its true and most beneficial form, and not one hamstringing the other.
Do you ever see a hotly contested race for a piano player at the church? Really going after it.
It got to the point where we had to have nominations. No, I'm just kidding. We had to have nomination speeches. Then, my brother, you have 3 minutes.
Yeah. Then the problem is, there was a lot of turmoil, and the the piano lobby broke up, and then you had electric versus the standard piano. And next thing you know, we got two parties, got two piano parties. Oh man, it was a nightmare. It was an absolute mess. Yeah. You got Yamaha's in there lobbying, throwing money at this candidate. It's ridiculous, man. But I get it. You're exactly right. It's what we do, right? Like we end up shooting ourselves in the foot. And a lot of times we say it's not legalism, and then it's just masked legalism is what it is. And we still do it even to today. So we've talked about some kind of big challenges. We've talked about declining church attendance, but we really got into the weeds on that. We talked about engaging and connecting with new church members. We talked about those, there are skill set limitations. Like we recognize that there are certain jobs for certain people, but we've got to be willing to train and equip and teach, and we've got to get the right people on the right seats. But this last one, I think this might be a little too close to home. And I think it's just one we got to be willing to be honest about. But I think one of the biggest challenges we have is serving at our churches is not fun. It's not rewarding. It's just not a positive experience. And I'm not saying hands down that every church has that, but I'm just saying, like, if you gave everybody like truth serum that's serving at your church, what would they say? Like, would they volunteer their heart, what they're really experiencing? And so, a lot of times in churches, we're not getting regular feedback when it comes to people are serving and the positions are serving it. We're not getting regular feedback. It's a set it and forget it mentality in church culture. You know what I mean? Like that person volunteered, they're going to run with it. And let's just pray they never need a break. That's right. Or die or move. And so what happens is that people, they won't share what's really going on, and they won't share how terrible of an experience is. And so what do people do instead of doing that, Greg? They quit. They just quietly quit because problems aren't being solved. And oftentimes we'll take the blame for our mistake and just be like, oh no, I just got a lot on my plate right now. And that's just not a good season. And just, they won't even be honest because they want to keep the peace. And I get that. So we have to be willing to recognize that if we don't have a positive volunteer culture, serve culture, then we've got to be willing to solve problems. Yep. And if we're not solving problems, then people don't trust you. And if they don't trust you, they're not going to serve. Right. And that spreads like a wildfire.
It does. And I think you're absolutely right that we have to build into the culture of our teams, of our church, of our ministries that not only are we in it together, but that if there are problems, we want to fix those problems. We want to be problem solvers. But to do that, we have to be aware. And I think with that, one of the things that, and I know this is getting somewhat into a solution, but I think it also more points to the reality that we're just not always good at continually reinforcing the why and the mission for whatever team we're asking people to serve on.
Okay.
We don't constantly remind the greeters, what is your purpose? Why did you come here today?
Yeah.
If you don't know that your number one reason is to greet people and to make sure that they feel welcome so that maybe, just maybe, their hearts are softened enough to hear the gospel, you've missed the point. If you're here in the preschool department, your reason for being here is not to change diapers.
Right.
That is a function, but that is not your purpose. Your purpose is to have opportunity to serve mom and dad so that they can go learn the things of God, but also, and more importantly, to teach these children the good news of Jesus.
Yeah, man.
Yes, that happens because you change their diaper. Yes, that happens because you feed them goldfish snacks. Yes, that happens because you play with, you go outside and you play games with them, and you read stories to them, all of those things. But the overwhelming purpose is to have opportunity to talk to them about Jesus. And so I think we often lose volunteers, and they're not having good experiences because they don't clearly know why they're there.
Yeah.
And we're not continually telling them why they're there. And then I think you also hit on it when you said, we think, oh, this person's agreed to do it, and we hope they never say no. asking people to serve till Jesus comes in a specific way is always the wrong answer.
Yep.
Instead, I think it's always the right answer to say, would you come serve with us?
Mm-hmm.
And here's the timeline.
Yeah.
And be clear on the front side what the expectation is. Hey, we'd like for you to do this for the next year. Or, you know what, this is probably a 3-year commitment. Or this is a six-month commitment. Or whatever it is. But put a time frame on it. And then be willing to give people a break.
Yeah.
Far too many quit because they didn't get a break, and they wouldn't have quit if somebody had come alongside and say, hey, why don't you just take some time?
Yeah. I signed up to help in kids ministry, and it turns out it was a 33-year commitment, like, oh my gosh. Yeah. You can't be doing that. But I love it, man. I think that this is really important, that this conversation is really important because we're highlighting these challenges. And I know as you're listening to this, pastor, church leader, you're probably tempted to think, well, man, this all sounds wonderful for a connections pastor or a volunteer coordinator, which I just can't afford, which we just don't have. And I get that. I know you hear the level of intentionality. And you're thinking, I'm already slammed as it is. I don't have time to bring this extra, laser focus that this type of culture requires. I get that. But we're going to get into some solutions over the next couple of weeks on how you can actually accomplish this, because this is something I'm personally very passionate about, because I love giving people pathways and opportunities to take next steps. I'm a big believer in that. I think it fills people's hearts with so much hope and opportunity. I think it puts a smile on Jesus' face. I think the church is better for it. So we're going to get into some real solutions with that. So just hang tight with us. But I also recognize that we're listening to this and we're going, okay, these issues that we're laying out, they're no-brainers. That's fine. The question I would have for you, just like we started in this episode, is, does everyone on your team recognize that? Mm-hmm. Like, does everyone who's leading a ministry or on your team or in leadership, do they all recognize that these are no-brainers? Have you sat down and vocalized the challenges that exist in your ministry that are even like specifically impacting their area of ministry? Like, have you created a room, if you created space, like Greg said, created space for people just to be honest about, like, man, we're really struggling. We've got these challenges. We want to be able to vocalize them. Because here, I think this is a good reminder. You can't grow if you're not learning. And we're not learning if we're not talking and evaluating the reality of our situation. We've got to talk. We've got to evaluate. We've got to be open and honest about the pain points that we're experiencing. That's true in your church, Greg. It's true in regardless of like what area you serve. So I think it's good to begin here, and maybe just, my call to action for us this week is just to maybe spend some time evaluating, do we have the answers to these questions over every area of ministry that requires people to serve in our church? Can we identify the pain points? Like, are we in an upswing? Are we preparing for growth? Or are we just focused on the negative? Like, do we have a clear pathway for engaging and connecting people? Do we recognize that there are skill set limitations and we can overcome that? We're going to get the right people in the right seats on the bus. And if nothing else, we're going to ensure that serving at this church is a blast. It's life-giving. Like, can we take time and legitimately answer those questions? I think that's really important. And then, over the next couple of weeks, we're gonna wrestle down some more stuff that I think is gonna be super helpful. And I know, Greg, I'm excited about that. I know you are too. And Greg, if people wanted to get more information about Simplify, if they wanted to follow us, they've heard this episode for the first time, and they're like, dang, these balded bros know what's up. And so we want to get more information. How can they do that?
Yeah, you can go to our website, simplifychurch.com. Yep. You can learn all about the Simplify team and the different things that Simplify offers. Specifically, to learn more about this show, you can go to simplifychurch.com/podcast, where you'll find the resources that we mention on the show, as well as links to previous episodes. You also can email us at podcast@simplifychurch.com. We'd love to hear from you. Love to hear not only questions, comments, areas of topics that we could cover on a show into the future, or just hey, you love the show, and we'd love to hear from you. But you also can follow us on social media. The Simplified Church has a Facebook page. You can find us there. You can find our show anywhere you listen to podcasts. So Apple Podcast or Spotify. If you do listen on Apple Podcast, would you do us a favor and not only subscribe, but like and review? That'll really help us continue to get this new content out in front of more listeners. And so please do us a favor if you haven't already, and do that for us by rating and reviewing.
Greg, did you know that we're on the YouTubes now? Did you know that?
Man, if I had known we were on the YouTubes, I would have like powdered my shine.
Try to bring down the sheen a little bit.
I would have.
Over here playing with the saturation controls like it's an old VCR. Like I'm just trying to get tracking on that forehead, man. Yeah. No, we're on the YouTubes as well, gang. You can go head over to YouTube. Simplified Church is our channel. We just recently started uploading some of our episodes there. We've got some other really cool content about bookkeeping and church finances with our CEO, Josh Henry, that you will not want to miss. Thanks for hanging out, gang. We'll see you next week.